leading us in that. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Tatum, second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and go for a vote. Ms. Lister.
I vote aye.
Foley,
I vote aye.
okay, and Dr. Bonebreak is not on. All right, I'll put him not present at vote. All votes are in and the motion carries.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lister. Next item on the agenda is school highlights. Dr. Anderson.
We're going to start with our Living the Dream Awards. And so as we start with our Living the Dream Awards, we're going to bring up the names of the winners of the Living the Dream. I'll be asking Reverend Williams, former board president, to please come forward at this time. Reverend Williams will share a little bit about what Living the Dream is for those that don't know, and he'll give a few comments, and we'd love to congratulate you with your award.
Evening, happy Thursday. Living the Dream's been around since 1985 and was created primarily to perpetuate Dr. King's legacy. Community service and education were high on Dr. King's list of priorities. And so what we do every year is offer scholarships and recognize people who otherwise would not be nominated to receive community service. You to read that? Okay. All right. And this year, our Pauline Barker School Award was from Carter Elementary. Nick Gardner, who at the time was working at Eisenhower, won the secondary Living Skills Education Award. Miss Keisha Cross, who was a preschool SPED educator at Ross, won the elementary version. And Miss Leah Smith, who was a rising senior to Peak West, was a recipient of our youth. We do appreciate the partnership that we've had over the years with the Peak Public Schools. Any questions?
First off, thank you so much for your work, that you're doing. Tell me how you got involved with this Living the Dream, and tell me about yourself and what you've done.
Well, like I said, it started in 1985, and I've been involved since 1986. Dr. King has had a profound influence on my life. One of my favorite quotes of his is licensed assistant or question. So I stick that piece of me. Lost one of our founders this past spring. But we will continue. This year we had the event in May. Normally it's in January, so we're going back.
Thank you so much I see the names and I recognize individuals as quality individuals who are dedicated to the greater good. And so it speaks to those individuals who you attract and who you want to recognize. So it's great work. Thank you very much. Other questions?
No, it's just great to see you. And thank you so much for all of your dedication for humanity. I was like, kids, humanity. It's just.
just a minute. So we take in about 5 minutes, we'll be taking a photo. All right, so this next, because they started us off with the pledge, thank you for doing that. But also because they're the Topeka Moms Demand Action, who have partnered with us now a couple of years in a row. So we're going to ask for our moms to stand up for the spokespersons to please come forward. They have been instrumental in giving out resources to families, but they'll share a little bit about who they are and what they're about for those that are listening on the live stream or might watch this later. And then yeah, my name is Hannah Schumacher, and I'm a volunteer with Moms in Action for Gun. And I'm a volunteer for Moms in Action.
So we've been working with Topeka Public Schools for about 2 years, providing resources to families about the safe storage of guns in an effort to prevent students, adults, people in general from getting their hands on guns and getting injured unintentionally.
Yes, and pushing out more information with the community news. And we've done a lot of work getting up unlocks.
Yep, we've been at numerous events, partnering with Topeka Public Schools. For a couple years, we've been at the Family Fun Fitness Night. Hopefully I got that word right. That's in September to kind of kick off the school year, where we've provided free gun locks and information about knowing the signs of suicide amongst youth and adults and how to safely store weapons so people don't get hold of them, those kind of things, as well as pass out information at food pantries offered by TPS. And then also for the last 2 summers, we've provided free gun locks at summer enrichment programs. And each year we've given out about 100 of those to families. And this year, since it was the second year, I personally really enjoyed a couple of people who said, "Oh, I got what I needed last year," or "Good to see you back," or those kind of things. So we know we're making an impact, no matter how small it is, if one child is safer. And we're also available to meet with PTOs or buildings, administrators, things like that, to get the gun safety message out as well.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. I did see you out there as I took my child into Topeka High. So thank you again. And there's no doubt in my mind that you are certainly saving lives of individuals and situations which could have been dangerous, but because you're providing this particular service and volunteering your time to sort of give to this, that it's making a difference in the lives of our community and families and students. Other questions? Yeah, Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, so this is my wife, who everybody hears about every 2 weeks. Can you give a little background on Moms Demand? We talked about it maybe a couple months ago. Ms. Stewart Campbell had talked about March for Our Lives, and we talked a little bit about Moms Demand, and I tried to give a succinct explanation, but the organization behind Be Smart, which is the specific program that you guys are talking about. Can you talk about that briefly?
So, yes, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America kind of comprises 2 components. There's the component Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, which often you see people in red shirts that say that. And that part of the group advocates for safe. It advocates for gun safety in communities related to legislation and things of that nature. Be Smart is the community education component of that, where we are only providing educational resources to prevent things from happening with unintentional shootings from happening with guns. Questions?
Yes.
Wow, the work you're doing, as you know, is so important. That's an understatement. So thank you for that. When you mentioned that you're available to present to PTOs. I was thinking, like as former PTO president, how would people find you to even like invite you to come speak to their school community?
Well, on social media, mainly Facebook, you can search for Kansas Moms Demand Action, and there's the group page you can follow there. And then locally, we have an email account, topeka@gmail.com, where you can email if you have requests, questions, or you want to volunteer. We're also at numerous community events. I believe we're in all 3 4th of July parades. So we're around, but that email is probably the best contact directly to someone. And then we also have a couple other volunteers here with us who are instrumental in helping us with these things in the last couple of years. So,
Let me introduce the volunteers. It's so wonderful to kind of recognize who's present. And if you're attached to a school or a particular school, feel free to I remember when she was in your stomach. And so it's just awesome to see her at this point. I know Dad is a lot.
all of us here tonight are associated with either grandchildren or children in 501 schools. And yeah, I have children at Meadows, Jardine, and soon to be Topeka High School. Busy. And has kids at Williams. Yeah. And then our other volunteers back there, Tanya Boyd, she has some grandchildren currently in Topeka Public Schools, and then Angela has a recent Topeka High School graduate.
Well, let's give them all a round of applause for all your work. Thank you so much.
Amazing thing about this is that you all reached out to me last year, just out of the blue, that we have this organization and this started. Hey, our Facebook, anyway, we promoted in the summer of last year, just seemed like a natural space. Wonderful to have our own family. Everything is moving on from the DCAC, and which are all the PTO presidents. We'll continue to push out the message to keep happen there against some unsafe practices. That's the message. I believe that's our last highlight. So can we transition to a photo while these ladies are still up? Bring Reverend Williams back up. All right. Mom?
Dr. Anderson. We'll move on to our next item, which is public communication. Ms. Lister, do we have any public communication for today?
Mr. President, we do not.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is disposition of business by consent. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president or superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Is there a second? All right, second by Ms. Schmidt. Any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Ms. Lister.
Vote is open.
Bone break, aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bonebright. All votes are in. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Anderson.
At this time, we are going to prepare to hear from our Ross team. So the picture on the front, this famous person, is the new principal at Ross. We are so very proud of Mr. Gardner. And when you scroll down, you can see that it didn't just start with him. It really started with his dad from East Topeka. And scroll down just a little bit farther, and you'll see the two of them standing together, looking just alike. One's just slightly older than the other. With that, I'm going to ask Mr. Gardner to come on up. He's going to introduce himself. So on your agenda, you will see legislation, House Bill 2567, Section 12. That shares that board members will review the achievement and the plan of action as to remove barriers. So that's what he'll be talking about. And I see brought his awesome team with him. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Gardner.
Good evening, board, President Munoz, Vice President Boley, Dr. Anderson. Thank you for having our Ross team here tonight. Dr. Anderson has handed out a folder. It has a brochure in it. And what we were charged with this summer was meeting different community partners, and we would take this folder everywhere we went, and it really was a good way to get the community involved at Ross. I'm going to quickly introduce the Ross team. This is Miss Lawson. She'll be the assistant principal for 3 through 5. This is Miss Keck. She'll be the assistant principal for pre-K through 2nd. And then Mr. Kirkwood, he will be the dean of students for 3rd through 5th grade. Miss Hop is not here. She's actually on vacation. She's going to be the dean of students for pre-K through 2nd. And this is the Ross admin team. So for achievement scores, we're really going to try to target 3 different areas. The first one is exposure to level 3 questions. And how we're going to accomplish this is really using Mastery Connect and having a question of the day in both math and ELA. And the why is because on the state assessment, those are the type of questions on the test. So not just a yes or no answer, but really getting the students to have that productive struggle and just really being exposed to that type of leveling of questioning. The next one is literacy on text. And this is just involving as much eyes on text as possible, not only in ELA, but in math, science, and in some of the fine arts, such as music and PE as well. To remove the barriers, we've kind of already started this summer with some of our summer work. The first one is mentoring. I'm a big proponent of mentoring, and we're going to carry on what we did at Eisenhower with the AIM group, and we're going to start with the 5th grade students at Ross, and then hopefully expand that to more of a campus mentoring, and then eventually get the K, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and 4th graders involved as well. Community partnerships. Dr. Anderson was my mentor for my doctorate degree, and she's charged me this summer with meeting as many community partners as possible. I would probably say I'm up to 30 different community partners I've worked with, and we have some really neat things planned. And that kind of goes into my last way to remove the barriers and experiences. Not only going places, but what can we bring to Ross? And we're in talks. Ms. Sublet is helping me get in contact with the Discovery Center, and they're coming to Ross actually November 2nd. And so that's going to be for the community to be involved at Ross with the Discovery Center. The needs assessment, we really looked at the needs assessment based upon really the survey data from the teachers that were at Ross last year. And this year at Ross, we're going to structure Ross and have, if you've been to Ross in kind of the older section or classic Ross, that's going to be the primary building. So we'll have pre-K first and second. And that is where Miss Keck will be and Miss Hop. And we'll have a counselor and a social worker dedicated just to the pre-K through second campus. Then in the newer portion of Ross is 3 through 5. And we're going to have Miss Lawson and then Mr. Kirkwood and a counselor and a social worker. So that's a ton of support to really help give Ross the structure and support it needs to be successful. And then we're going to just kind of structure the day throughout that. The morning routine, the teachers asked if we could have a consistent morning routine. And we're going to keep the pre-K through 5 in the commons. And then 3rd through 5th will be eating in various spaces in the 3rd through 5th grade section of the building. And just to cover a couple other logistical items, they are working on a fence to separate the playground, and that'll help keep the separate schools. And then lastly, we're going to support crisis calls in the school with the structured support of the K2 and the 3-5. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're really excited to have you introduce your team and get a sense of what you see as the work in front of you and your plan of action. Are there questions from here? Okay, let's go ahead and go to questions. First off, Ms. Schmidt.
Okay, so I warned Dr. Anderson last time that my question to presenters is going to be, how can we as a board help you to achieve your goals? And then kind of a follow-up question to that, what can anybody listening or, parents, teachers, neighborhood, how can they help you?
Thank you for that question. First is support, and the Board of Education and Dr. Anderson have already put an effort in to support Ross just with their admin team and mental health. And then second is being visible at Ross. You're welcome to come to Ross anytime. And those are the 2 ways I think the Board of Education can help Ross.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations for all 4 of you. This is pretty important work, and I'm pretty sure all 4 of you are new to Ross. No? Okay. All right, very cool. So you have the added responsibility of leading the way, kind of helping them get oriented. I will let you know that my home church congregation is the Topeka First Free Methodist Church, which is right down the street from Ross Elementary. And you guys have a lot of support coming from the entire congregation. And a lot of times when there's, I think we do like a mitten or sock drive or something like that every December. So you guys have a lot of neighborhood support from us. And then for Dr. Gardner, I love the focus on mentoring. I'm a former director of the Kansas Mentors Program with the Kansas Department of Education. So hearing you talk about that really kind of struck a chord with me. And perhaps you could talk a little bit about what you already began to put into process in terms of laying out the mentoring supports and maybe other organizations in the community that you're partnering with and networking with to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you for the mentoring piece. The first one is with the community. I know time is the biggest thing people could give any school. So I've been working with just different community partners. Me and Mr. Robbins met with Advisors Excel, some different churches, Mount Zion, Highcrest, Mr. Sublet. So the list is it gets longer and longer each day just with the support for Ross. Looking at Ross specifically with the mentoring program, we're really going to try to tie in the AIM focus, Achievement Inspired Minds. And this was a group we started at Eisenhower. And it started based on students. 4 students, I was called to a call for office support. 4 students were in my office. I was just talking with them. And they were asking me questions, how I got where I'm at. and it just really sparked interest. So we started with 4 people, me, Mr. Phillips, and Mr. Miniku, and it grew to 35 at Eisenhower. And something that was really neat was third quarter, 13 of the students made the honor roll. And so that was quite an accomplishment. And then probably the highlight with that is taking this young group of men to Washburn. And I'll never forget this. We were riding on the bus and a student asked me, are we still in Topeka? And that's what drives my work, is just getting that experience and that sense of belief is what drives the AIM program. So thank you for that question, Mr.
You're welcome. Thank you, and keep up the great work.
Other questions? I know we haven't heard from Ms. Bowie. Dr. Bonebrick, if you offer to make sure.
Thank you. I keep raising my hand, but nobody sees it. So I'm just really excited about, when would the mentoring program happen for the students? Is it during the day, after school, before school? What is your envision of what that mentoring piece would fit into your academic day?
Thank you, Vice President Boley. The AIM specific group will be during the morning when the students arrive at school, and Mr. Kirkwood is going to help me with that specifically. The rest of the community partners, we're really looking at structuring it during different times of the day that work from them. The 2 different times that we have are really lunch, that lunch recess time, and then really trying to integrate that within the classroom during reading or math as more of a buddy or just being visible within the classroom.
I am so excited for all the work that you're about to put in. I have dreamed of this for Ross, as some of you already know. So I'm very excited, and I will take you up on your offer to just show up and see how you're doing and how I can help. I'm very excited. Thank you. Thank you for all the time you put in this summer, because I have heard about the time that you have put in to be prepared for opening your building. So thank you, and thank you again.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Comment and a few questions. So my comment, along with Ms. Bully, is just I'm too am very excited, and I have such a love for Ross. And I know under your leadership, Mr. Doctor, is it Doctor? No,
1 year away, hopefully.
Mr. Soon-to-be Dr. Gardner, and your the rest of your leadership team. I feel really great about this, and I love how it's now divided. So because people would say, oh, it's so big, which it is, but having your K2 and then 3-5 is an excellent idea, and I just am extremely optimistic. Okay, now my questions. What exactly does the Dean of Students do? So I know some of our other schools have it, and I just figured now's the time to ask. So.
Well, the 2 deans at Ross, and I know other schools use their deans similar, they're going to focus on a lot on student discipline and being proactive. They're going to be kind of charged with the PBIS and CI3T model. And then really helping support teachers in that aspect with coaching and just being visible within the classroom.
Okay, wonderful. And I do have another question.
Mr. President, I have a question of Dr. Gardner.
Yes, go ahead.
I really appreciate these efforts, and I hope they are able to be translated to other schools. My question is, getting a PhD in education isn't an easy thing. And I wonder what your thesis was.
Thank you, Dr. Bonebrake. My dissertation focus is education by zip code, and I'm at a perfect school to really help not only learn it firsthand, but also do the research and peer review study to really help correlate between theory and actually what happens in practice. So it's pretty exciting, Dr. Bonebrake.
I hope this is translated to other schools. I wish you all the success in the world, but I also wish we could extend the school year. Nobody's ever heard me say that before.
And I remembered my other question, but Miss Schmidt had actually beat me to it. So, but yeah, great. Actually, there's one more. So Signature Music School. So I know we have a new music teacher, correct? Starting this year. Okay. So anyway, that's exciting. I guess I didn't have a question. But,
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Martinez.
okay.
I'd just like to say that I'm excited for this team and thank you for giving us the support that I feel like we need. And I think that's what we're there for, is to give the teachers the support they need, along with the students the support they need, so that we can make sure to give them every effort that we have to keep them in the classroom learning where they need to be at, and to keep it as positive and upbeat as possible. And I think that's what we're all here to do.
Yeah, so I was a former dean of students at Quincy last year. So actually, it's wonderful to move into this role at Ross as an assistant principal and really having a wonderful team. You will not find a team that works harder than the people standing up here. We put in a lot of effort. If something needs done, we get it done. So I'm really looking forward to the school year and working with these wonderful people and Miss Hop, who's not here, but she's also quite wonderful.
So as we mentioned earlier, this is my second year at Ross, and I think I am most excited about, splitting up the building and really focusing in on the students on my side of the building. I felt like last year sometimes, stretched a little thin because it's a big building. So I'm really excited. I taught fourth grade for 5 years. So intermediate is kind of where a lot of my experience is. So I'm excited to get in those classrooms more, work with those students and those teachers, and just with Rob's support, just make a big difference this year. So I'm just excited.
Just congratulations, everyone. I read the article in the Capital Journal about you, Mr. Almost Dr. Gardner. That's what I'm going to call you. Now, when we talk about Miss Hop, is this Cynthia Hop who we're talking about? Okay, that's great. She was my son's second grade teacher. Yeah, and I still have like artwork that he made me for Mother's Day with that she helped a lot with, hanging up in her house. So yeah, that was a score to have her
And
too.
Dr. Anderson mentioned it. One of the things we're excited about is a lot of bilingual staff members that we've hired for next year, and just really trying to get that connection with all families in our building.
Ms. Lawson, were you someone that Ms. Stewart Campbell and I met?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I was in and
I'm
out.
sorry.
Though. No, I was in and out, so it's okay.
Right. Yes. Ms. Schmidt.
Could we make Ross one of the places that we go and have one of our board meetings out in the community?
Will we cut
So excited about the remaining members of our team. Just this whole team is really a rock star team in terms of skill and ability. And then, of course, our dean, known for relationships and being able to connect with young people and others. And so this team really is complementary in their skill set. And then, of course, our bilingual member, Ms. Hop, who's not here this evening. We're excited about the year ahead, and we're excited about having a board meeting there. Mr. Gardner shared that we meet every Thursday. So today was our meeting. We meet every Thursday morning as part of the mentoring for his doctoral program. And he was sharing that after people read the article, people who had gone to other schools or places, adults and students, asked could they come back. So we were doing transfers back today to Ross. So we are just really excited that other people are excited about just this entire team. Turn it over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Again, congratulations on just the start of what we feel like it's going to be something amazing. And we look forward to visiting officially as a board, but also individually as members and just as parents who have students here as well. We all want to see you succeed, and we want, and I think the work you're doing is going to move TPS forward. So look forward to it. Congrats again. Thanks so much.
Our next presentation is about Summer Academy, which is our extended school year. We're going to start off with this video, just kind of kick us off. It's a little 2-minute piece that we'll share that we just, I don't even think it's been aired yet, but it will be aired this evening after the board meeting. And just to introduce you to Miss Paige Roberts, she is phenomenal. I said, please run the extended school year next year. Well, Miss Paige Roberts moved into Topeka upon getting the position. And I think she moved maybe last year, most recently, bought a really, really big farm with cattle and all of that. And she needs to be with her cattle and her big farm next year because you get 6 days in between summer ending and teachers coming back and principals coming back. So she got 6 days in between the two. But this has been quite the program. As you know, extended school year falls really under Miss Wallace. It's something that my first year, I was surprised we didn't have a summer program. And so I asked her to, dream with me, and we started the summer program. And from there, it's just continued to grow into an extended school year with very little time out of school at the end of May and the beginning of June. So just enjoy the 2.5-minute clip, and then we'll start with the presentation.
My second summer being part of the summer enrichment program. We've had a great turnout in students. Our enrollment has increased this year. So 2 of our sites are more academic based. So those students are being exposed to the ELA standards, math standards, and even our social emotional curriculum. On the enrichment side, it's a lot of fun camps.
So in our summer credit recovery program at the high school level, each of our high schools offers credit recovery opportunity during the summer. This year, we recovered about 700 classes, and that was approximately 350 students who recovered those classes. We did offer credit acquisition also, so students can get ahead of the game and take some classes in advance.
With the kindergartners through 3rd graders, we have them for 1 week. We see who we have and what they would like and what they can do, and we put together something as quickly as possible. You'll always get behaviors of little kids. They're still rambunctious and energetic, which can be very, very helpful.
First, I was doing engineering and design process. Then I was doing chess and coding and robotics. This week, I'm doing geography and arts.
This program teaches kids how to code, like code robots to move through certain courses. In Topeka High, I took a coding class, which is why I actually helped most of the kids learn coding. We're in a team. You can't rely on one person. All 4 or 5 people have to work together.
We even had a quote from a 6th grade student who said, "I've met so many new friends this summer that I don't get the opportunity to go to school with during the school year." And that's been the best part, hearing about their experiences, hearing how much they enjoy learning new things. So it's been a delight to just see their faces and hear their enjoyment.
So with that Ms. Roberts has a PowerPoint, and she'll introduce herself as we bring that on up. Ms. Roberts, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you for having me here this evening. I'm Paige Roberts, and I am currently the principal at State Street for the upcoming school year. I did run the summer enrichment program this summer and also last summer under Carrie Ritter. She was moved into her principal position at Williams, and so I was quickly promoted into her position to take the reins and run the program. So that was a great experience to have that first year under my belt. What I realized in running that first year was there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces and information that you need to know and become familiar with, because there are a lot of people in the district who contribute to build the program. I cannot do it by myself. I have to have the team with me. So I ended up writing a manual for the summer enrichment coordinator, not thinking that I would be turning the reins over at the end of this summer, but it did come in handy when I did train my replacement for the next summer.
And we'll interject and then jump on into your PowerPoint. So for next summer, what does the summer program look like? In the past, I've used it as a succession planning piece. So Real McCoy, you all know her as Erin McCoy. She was a teacher, and that's who helped start it in 2016, 17, and I gave it to her. And then she moved into a principalship. She trained Miss Ritter. Miss Ritter has now trained her. So we created a program called Director of Cultural Innovation. That is Dr. Mejia. In her job description, the summer programming and extended school year that brings in cultures and languages and continues to expand and reaches perhaps families that we might not be reaching now as extensively. That's part of her role because she's a 12-month employee under that role. So that's how summer will have continuity and continue to grow. I'll turn it over to you in the PowerPoint.
Absolutely. So this first slide just highlights merely a few of those highlights from the whole program that we ran. We wanted to include the picture of remote learning, which this was our second year to offer the remote learning for our students. We had 4 remote learning teachers. Something that was new this year was reading and phonics, and that was a really popular offering for our families. So we were glad to have her come on board and provide that instruction to the students. And then you can see we had our chess club again. Coding and robotics was huge. This year, we actually accepted pre-K to come in and be part of the program. And they had very high numbers, very high interest. And the teachers were very creative in getting pre-K students engaged because they, as we know, are learning to read. And so a lot of the coding that they had to do would involve some reading activities. So they were able to bring it down to their level so that they could make those connections and really build that foundation and interest in the program moving forward for them. The butterfly mural that you see, the geography and art, was also a new option. Wasn't as popular at first when parents were enrolling. And so we helped them understand what for their students, and it became wildly popular. They went on a field trip every week to the zoo. You can see here they were painting the mural that is their mark that zoo, but they focused on different regions of the zoo and learning about those specific continents before they went to the zoo. That was kind of the culminating activity for them. A lot of enjoyment there. So it was great. We had 4 locations altogether. 2 were academic, elementary and middle, and then the 2 were our enrichment camps at Topeka High and TCAL. We also hosted our students from Ukraine, and so with Dr. Pilar, she is coming on board, and she was just fascinated by having them part of the program. She got to meet them, and this really fit well into the new position she's moving into. The students were housed at Topeka High School in the offerings there, and we found ways to help them engage because English is not their first language. And they had chaperones with them, but the students actually stepped up who were in their offerings with them. Miss Melanie Stewart Campbell's daughter was actually serving as a translator in one of our theater classes for one of the students. And so that was very exciting. And even reading the descriptor and the fact that the Ukraine students wanted to put on their own performance and talk about, you know, one of their traditions
was just for all of them. Oh, yes, sorry. Yes. 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 Yes.
And as she goes to this next slide, one of the reasons Ms. Lawson is still here is that this is the first year there was a coordinator at every site, in addition to having an overall coordinator. So Ms. Lawson was at the Topeka High site, Ms. Wagner was at TCALC, and there was a coordinator at every site. So that gave added opportunity for assistant principals to have that succession planning that I talked about, to continue to do that. So we'll still be doing that, and that model will continue. That was Ms. Wallace's brainchild, and it has really made for an amazing summer.
So you've seen this slide in the past, and I wanted to just highlight this same slide again this year, just to re-anchor where we've come from. The year that this program began, just like Dr. Anderson said, this was her baby that she birthed, and it came about in 2017, and you can see how many people are enrolling in this program, and it's gaining popularity. And I have to give kudos to our communications team. They did a tremendous job of getting flyers out, preparing our website, our registration and enrollment document. Again, it's just all the teams who were on board to really put this thing in motion. And so that is why our numbers are increasing. A total of 130 plus students at Scott Elementary for our academic side, a total of around 60 middle school students for Robinson, and then over 200 at TCALC. And those were.
And we'll turn it over to Ms. Wallace to pick up from here.
Good evening. So we've had a lot of success with some of our other summer programs. So along with the summer enrichment and the learning loss opportunities, we are hosting our summer music program. And last year we had about 47 students. This summer we had 100. So that doubled in size. Our Native American summer camp ran for 2 weeks, and we had 50 Native American students who participated in that. We still have going on this week the CAP program for our preschool students at Williams Elementary. And then every year we have a special education extended school year, and they supported 113 students. But the most exciting piece, I think, is that we recovered over 700 high school courses. 381 students recovered those 700 classes, which is just pretty amazing. That's the largest number of classes recovered in a summer.
And for those that don't know what we're talking about that are listening in, these are young people that failed a class and they're able to take it over the summer and then pass it and potentially still graduate, because graduation can still occur over the summer. So young people who might have been delayed in their graduation, it's truly a game changer for a lot of families.
And I would just add, we still have seniors that walked, that we are getting those last couple of classes finished, and they actually have through September to complete their courses to be considered a 2022 graduate. So we have some quotes that we grabbed from some participants. The first one is actually my hairdresser. I was getting my hair done, and she said, "Hey, you know, your summer program is amazing. It's so amazing. I'm not telling anyone because I don't want to lose my spot." So it was just a really positive experience for everyone.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. President for any questions you might have for either Ms. Wallace or Ms. Roberts.
Thank you so much. Other questions here? I'll start off with one question. I'm interested in those 700 classes we were able to have recovered. Do we have any sense of how many seniors will have now, many additional seniors may have been able to graduate?
I don't have that specifically. So this is everyone grades 9 through 12, but I can get that information.
That's okay. I'm just wondering. I think it's really important, and obviously it's making sure our students graduate, and we're offering opportunities to be able to catch up and to realize, you know what, I may not have passed that class, but I have another chance to be able to make that up. And so that's great. You know, the only thing that comes to mind for me is that I really want to be intentional for next summer to be able to visit and to see, you know, what's going on in our summer schools. as well as I have some experience dropping off my students at the summer enrichment. And I saw and I hear every day all of the great things that are going on. But I'd love to learn more about personally our summer school program and what we're doing to sort of get kids and keep them on track. Other questions? Anyone else?
Yeah, my daughter loved it. She did chess club. She was in the photo, and then the theater with the Ukrainian girls. So the translator, interpreter. So like the night before, Mommy, how do you say welcome to the United States? So we would just get on Google Translate. And so that's what I know. Maybe you know more about what she and Mr. Tatum's daughter actually did during the camp, but that was really cool. And she also commented on what I think it was Miss Wallace, or maybe it was you, about how it was fun to meet kids who go to different schools and interact with them. Anyway, great job. Thank you. And I had a question for Miss Wallace about the credit recovery. Is how, let's say a student needed, I don't know, a math credit. How were they, was it all like Edmonton, or how did we get the staff to accomplish all of that?
So no, actually, previous to last summer, it was pretty much all online and virtual, but we changed that model to really engage students. So it's a hybrid model. They do have some lessons that are on Edmonton, but then they have teachers that are there teaching lessons and helping and supporting them. So it's a combo.
I did remember one question I had. Dr. Anderson, you made reference to the fact that Dr. Mejia will be working on trying to sort of expand who individuals who know about that, right? I think when we look at it, it's growing, but I also want to make sure that it's growing and that we're making efforts to reach students and families who maybe wouldn't have thought of going to this, but who could really benefit from that. Any ideas of going forward, how we might be able to leverage Dr. Mejia's position to make more people aware of it?
Absolutely. So the vision is really expanding opportunity and access. So that an example of that, Ms. Wallace uses grant funds to waive fees and to address items in terms of cost for certain kinds of things. Dr. Mejia also brings the beautiful ability of being bilingual. So we started these listening tours, which we're going to be continuing, but making sure that our bilingual families not only are, if they don't read the material and know to bring their child to extended year, to know that even if they don't want an academic camp, if they want something else that challenges them, cooking was probably one of the most popular camps, but being able to not only oversee the summer program, but reach out into communities with our bilingual families. The other piece outside of that, she's right now working with, I've tasked her with really working with the Kansas Refugee Council to really look at how do we help young people, no matter where they live, if they're in this county, to be able to access services and making this really culturally relevant, whether it's what they cook, where they go, the places they go. So I just see it growing and being even more inclusive in ways that that we can. So it's really about dreaming big. Dr. Mejia started July 1st, so she got a chance to come a little bit earlier and shadow a little bit, see what things look like. And just like Miss Roberts really took it in some other directions and made the manual, I suspect everyone knows Dr. Mejia and that energy. I suspect we're going to see some new things that we would not have even thought of on this end. But that cultural piece and the innovative piece are the two kind of big, big things that we're really asking for her to look at for the summer programming and to get ideas about how to do that for refugees, for our bilingual families, and for all others who may not have used the camp. Since we did have Ross here, I did task the principal, Mr. Gardner, with the task of seeing who should have come this summer, who didn't, and why didn't they come, academically. And so he really has that as one of his mentor homework assignments that I gave him to really look at. And then the ones that did come, for our summer program, Miss Roberts, she gave him all the kids that did come, and then he was able to track the pre-post assessments to see how well they did. So they already know who to work with and how they did over the summer programming. So I just see Dr. Mejia further connecting with our administrators in that kind of way.
That's exactly what I was hoping to hear, is that we're leveraging these programs in enrichment with students who could benefit from that. Keep making sure that gap that occurs during summer that we see, that slide, that we minimize that as much as possible with the students who most need that.
Yes, closing the equity gap, truly.
Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Is there
Mr.
anything else,
President, I have
Dr.
yeah,
Yes,
Mr. President,
Dr. Bonebright.
I'm wondering if a student is taking one or two classes, what time commitment is that individual making per day? How many weeks? What sort of commitment are they making?
So Ms. Wallace, for the credit recovery, can you talk about that?
Yes, for the high school credit recovery, they were there from 8 to 11:30. Some of the schools stayed later till 1 or 2 o'clock if there were students who could stay and needed that support. And then they had access to online resources to continue that work at home. But the schools were open and accessible every day from like 8 to 2 o'clock.
But how many credits would a student get from 8 to 2 or whatever?
Well, so we had about 381 students, and they recovered about 700 classes. So that's about 350 credits, because a credit is 2 classes. So they each, averaged recovering 2 classes or a full credit.
So how long were they there each day and for how many weeks?
That varied. It was over at 11:30, so students could leave or they could stay for additional help and to continue. And then they could continue that work at home. And I think it really, probably how long it took a student to complete a course really depended on their time, energy, effort, and ability to stick with it.
How many hours, Ms. Wallace, to further answer that question, is a credit? When you talk about a credit, what kind of time is that?
So generally during the school year, a class is about 90 hours seat time, and a credit recovery class should take the average student between 45 and 50 hours.
So in addition to the in-class, if they left at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock, they still would be expected to do some things online, homework assignments, project-based assignments, research papers, those kinds of things to really add in those hours as well.
Okay.
Ms. Bowley, anything from you? I just want to check in with you.
Yes, I just want to say I see so much importance we're talking about our high school seniors recovering credits. But when we drop down into our middle school and high school, we end up with a lot of dropouts when kids feel like, oh, I'm never going to make it now because I've lost too many credits. And so this is really great for making sure our students stay in school and head for that graduation, that it doesn't feel so hopeless to them. So I appreciate that time in the summer for students to be able to, stay on track. Staying on track is really important for a full graduation rate. So thank you.
Dr. Anderson, I'm sorry. Could I would just add, we also had students who recovered credits through unit recovery. So they didn't necessarily have to take the entire course. They took this section of the course that they had trouble with or failed. And our teachers worked really hard to identify those particular units so students weren't taking a whole class.
So Dr. Bonebright, that may answer a little bit of that question as well. If you heard Mrs. Wallace, that if a student retook a course and failed something, they retook the unit that they failed in some cases. And in those cases, it would not take the full 90 hours. It may take 40 or 30 or 20 based on whatever they failed. They just took that section. Same with ACT, which now that was not as full, but there were some families that came to the community site that shared that students, their scores went from 3 to 5 points above where they were on the ACT, which is pretty amazing. And they came to the very first listening center to thank us for the ACT Summer Academy. And while it wasn't a full academy, the personalized attention with the smaller numbers allowed for young people to get higher ACT. Again, they only took the ACT portion that they needed. Thank you for mentioning that as well. And those are all of our comments.
All right, thank you so much. Under superintendent's report, is there anything else that we have?
No, sir. I will tell you that Mrs. Botter is on, our nurse. This is your work session time to talk about health. It is our expectation for you to give us guidance if you would like for us to do something other than what she shares our plan is. Ms. Botter, as we pull her on up on that screen, we were going to pick up with where we left off at. We left off with your direction that masks were optional. We plan to continue that when we open the year, but as you have discussion, we'll listen and take notes to your discussion. Ms. Botter, what other updates would you like to give at this time? Keeping in mind that the 27th, next week, is the meeting with the health department, which originally wasn't planned, but we acquired. Would there be one just before school started? Is there anything we needed to know? So they did share, since we are at a high rate of spread, that they would have that for all county districts. Ms. Botter, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good evening, board members. The Shawnee County Health Department has indicated to me that they will be deferring to KDHE for guidance for managing COVID in the schools for this coming school year. And so with that in mind, there's been very little changes made from what we were doing last year to what KDHE recommends for this year. The one change that has taken place is they no longer recommend sending a student home with just one symptom. Instead, they recommend that that student be tested at school and or go home and follow the pre-existing before COVID days KDHE exclusion table. So that's one of the big changes. We will continue to offer testing at each building. We are adding an additional test to the 2 COVID tests that we had in place last year. The new one is a COVID and influenza A and B combination test that we will be offering to students and staff as well in every building. So essentially there is no change to what we were doing last year except the one symptom exclusion. And at that point, with the one symptom, we requested either a negative COVID test or a doctor's note with an alternative diagnosis. So we will no longer be doing that this school year.
So with that, we'll turn it over to the board. We kept our COVID nurses. We're so glad we did that. So we added them into the ESSER funding, and it was just another idea of how could we keep up, because we had a really hard time keeping up. So we have some vacancies, but very few, and many of those COVID nurses will still be in place using ESSER funding. Turn it over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Are there questions here? One of the questions that I have is where are we in terms of community level transmission? I think in the past, we've always been able to know exactly where we were. And right now, I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm seeing anecdotal evidence, the fact that transmissions seem to be high, but I don't, any guidance on?
Absolutely. Can we go to the main web page? We're going to share where that's at on our webpage for the viewers so that they know how they can find that. Also, as he's doing that, Ms. Botter, can you share what the transmission rate is at this time as we go to the webpage?
Currently, based on Shawnee County Health Department's website, they are showing that Shawnee County is in the high level. It is orange on the map, and they're recommending masks, encouraging mask wearing when you're either inside or outside. So that's the most recent information that I have available.
And so for parents that are watching, we have a button that we put called Parent Resources for COVID. Click on that. It'll take you to their index. Everything else is still as we left it in May or in January. So in January, we talked about reopening, and here are our mitigation. We're still doing the same mitigation. That doesn't change. The UV lights and all of that, that's still going to be occurring. And then, of course, now as we go into this year, we won't necessarily have some of the pieces that are below, but we were afraid to take anything off until after our meeting next week. The ones we learned from the health department, what pieces they will or won't have in place, we'll further adjust this for August the 11th for when students return.
What other questions do you all have? mean, for me, the biggest thing is we made the decision to be mask optional that was a recommendation of the CDC. If the transmission levels are not high, that was their recommendation. But if we're in high, we do. Yes, Ms. Schmidt.
So my personal stance on it is that we need to remain as we have been with our last decision. We need to give our parents and staff that decision to make for themselves. I don't feel like it's our place to push anything on the whole. And I've actually had a few people reach out and say, as we start school, we really want to be able to make those decisions for ourselves. So that's where I stand.
Others thoughts, Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, so I think professionally, we've seen probably over the last 3 to 4 weeks kind of percent positivity increase and the caseload increase. And I think just recently the Shawnee County and pretty much all the surrounding counties have gone from yellow to red on the CDC tracker. I think red now is a little bit different than red in like November 2021. I have a lot of people that come into my office because we do require masks. When we're seeing people that tell me I haven't thought about wearing a mask in a year, and kind of blows me away. So I think positivity rate at this point, I think more people are doing more normal things. And so I think we do have to take that into account a little bit. I think all of our goal is to keep kids in school and to keep our kids safe and healthy and our teachers safe and healthy. And I think we do what's important for that. I was concerned, and I was going to ask Ms. Fodder about the support for the nursing staff, but I think, because with increased positivity, we'll have more kids needing testing to stay, are we still doing test to play?
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Botter?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
we did for indoor sports. Yes.
yeah. So maybe we won't have to worry about that until the winter, but or I guess it's volleyball. But having enough support, I know that's something that the nursing staff in the schools, it's a big load for them to bear. And so having that support with the COVID nurses, I personally would be interested in how can we, with KDHE's support or Shawnee County support, like we have in the past at maybe one of our food pantries offer booster doses for the COVID vaccine. Most of the kids going into our school have been eligible for vaccines for a long time, and most of them are eligible for boosters and most of them don't have them. And so if we can have a way, because I remember when we did that at Jardine's food pantry, we had quite a few people go through that line and get booster doses of the vaccine. And so I think I would advocate for trying to encourage that. And I think, I'm not wearing a mask up here today, so I think it would be hypocritical for me to say that my kids should be wearing a mask when they go into school, but I think we should encourage and strongly encourage masks when our community levels are this high. But I don't know that requiring it is the right thing to do right now.
We did ask KDHE prior to this meeting if they would be, open to giving another vaccination clinic for children. And they said they really are at the point of encouraging families to connect with their pediatrician or their own health professional rather than coming out to the schools. That was the response. We certainly can inquire in light of the comment, even about boosters for adults, an additional time. So I'll do that. But that's the most recent update, the encouragement for people to contact their own health professionals or build a relationship with their pediatrician.
Mr. President.
Yes, Ms. Bowley.
I had a question for Ms. Vodder. What are the recommendations right now for quarantining? How many days would our students lose if they test positive and have to go home. I'm thinking of learning loss of many students being gone, particularly at the early part of the year, since our transmission rate is high. How much time would they lose as a positive test?
Anyone who tests positive is required by KDHE to stay home for 5 days. And so it may actually be 6, because if they start having symptoms on today is day 0, and day 1 of that 5-day quarantine begins tomorrow. So depending on where it falls and when they get sick and or when they test positive, it could be a 5 or 6 day quarantine, depending on the weekends and holidays and all of that, as far as total time lost from the classroom.
Are they still required to wear a mask 5 days, the remaining 5 days of a 10-day quarantine? If they would return after 5 days, they have to wear a mask.
Yes. That is the recommendation of KDHE, that they can resume normal activities, but should wear a well-fitting mask for an additional 5 days. So they stay home 5 and they wear a mask for the 5 days following when they come back to normal activities.
So as a board, I guess we have a concern there of what our requirements will be for them to return to school. There'll probably have to be a decision made there as a board. I believe that we should have a statement that we highly recommend returning to school with masks, but not that it is required. But I think that might be different for students returning after a positive test.
Yeah, Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, I think Ms. Boley, I think the guidance from the state would usurp anything that we decided. So if they're requiring 5 days of mask afterwards, that would be required in the school as well.
Yeah, Mr. Tatum.
Mr. President, and I'm wondering, the masks have always been more of a protection for others and not the person necessarily wearing the mask. Excuse me. There used to be a saying, love thy neighbor, but I guess that's gone by the by. And we need the N95 masks, not necessarily the cloth ones, but with close proximity, I really think masks would be recommended when we're all in the high zone. But we get so many people that take it as a personal freedom infringement, and getting a vaccination is a personal infringement. But nobody fought the polio vaccine, and only 3,000 people died of polio. We've got 1 million people in the United States have died of COVID. And the young people aren't necessarily the ones that get ill, but they give it to their elders and grandparents. So we've got another tough row to hoe.
Mr. Tatum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just kind of throw out on the table for Dr. Anderson and Ms. Votter's benefit. I think the number one public health concern in the United States is, of course, COVID-19. But the number 2 currently, as we stand, is monkeypox, and monkeypox is here in Kansas. I don't know how much of a threat on the horizon that is for our students, but it might be something worth having a discussion about when you meet with the Shawnee County Health Department folks next week, just to kind of find out what their recommendations are on that particular concern. That's all I have.
I'm thinking about Dr. Schumacher's comment about the booster and then like another vaccine clinic. And I understand how like KDHE says, have families work with their pediatricians. Well, I'm thinking of our like low-income families, our immigrant families who don't have a car, who the reason like their kids don't have the booster is they don't have the families that don't have a medical home. So like they go to the health department or not because they don't have a way to get there. So if there's any way we could do some kind of vaccination clinic for these much needed vaccines, boosters, I'd really like to see that if we can do that. That's all. Thanks.
So it seems like there doesn't seem to be support for any sort of change, but there does seem, as far as masking as it is, but there does seem to be some support for our messaging in terms of, am I off on that? Before it was just, what was our messaging before, Dr. Anderson?
That it's encouraged but not required. So we plan to continue to say, masks are encouraged but not required. We do have a professional development date that is coming up, and we would normally say it's encouraged but not required. However, when they're entering, because it's 2,500 people coming together, there may be some spaces that we ask them to wear their mask into if they come into Bishop professional development and some of the small spaces, because many people are coming from all over. So, and those sessions sometimes are 30 minutes or whatever, 90 minutes at length. But our messaging, even when we have convocation on August 4th, is encouraged but not required. Convocation will look a little different. However, we will say that anyone that would like to, generally I require convocation. It's something we started when I started, but this will not be a required year. It's optional in that they can watch it live stream. But the principals do have to have a way to account for the attendance of people coming to work. They can't watch from their home live stream, but they can watch from their school building if they have, if they prefer not to be in a space with so many people. We also will limit the speeches. Really, we're going to focus on the student as the main speaker. And we have a second grader this year that's taken DeAndre's place. So we're real excited about her speech. And, I'll say remarks as I always do, but really letting her be the highlight. And if it's okay with you, Mr. President, just, really acknowledging the board and stand and wave, whether we do that or you do that, but trying to just really leave it to our student, keeping that convocation even shorter than what it normally is.
Yeah, and I wonder, I don't just want to ignore the fact that we're in high transmission. And I wonder, while we're still designated in that high, whether we make a shift to strongly encouraged, but not mandated. And then once our transmission rates go back down, it reverts back to what it was before, just encouraged. In light of the fact that this is something that will keep our, students safe, but also if you remember back to last year and how hard it was for us and staff to keep, our schools open, and it was a real big struggle. Ms. Schmidt, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to call back to what Dr. Schumacher said earlier, that I don't know that high right now is the same as high when we experienced it, historically a few months ago. So I think we're kind of maybe comparing apples to oranges here.
Yeah, but I also think that it's probably worse, at least transmission is now, just because of how prevalent home tests are and how individuals aren't necessarily going to, our Shawnee County Health Agency and getting tested there, that they're getting tested locally and aren't necessarily reporting that. I agree. I mean, I think I'm trying to get my footing in terms of what does COVID and what do high transmissions, what does it mean now as opposed to before? Yeah. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out. But
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Bowley, and then Dr. Schumacher.
The difference in the virus is definitely different, but the absentee rate is going to be the same for our teachers, our staff, and our students. So, we still are concerned about missing 5 days of school and maybe more depending on their illness. But 5 days of school is a lot of days to miss and hard to make up. And for a teacher to miss 5 days, that also creates staffing problems. So, you know, even though it's not the same virus, I don't think it's comparing apples to oranges. I think we still have the same absentee rate either way.
Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, that's kind of similar to what I was going to say. So I never stayed home, not one day since March 2020. I went to work every day. And so I worried for a long time that I was going to really hurt somebody that I really loved by bringing COVID home. And that I don't have that fear now. So it's different, but there's still a 5-day quarantine, 5 days with mask. And so if the percent positive is, or the community transmission is high, then we still do have to worry about the same number of absenteeism and that kind of stuff. So.
Mr. Tatum.
I want to circle back around to the convocation event. Dr. Anderson said something that made me think about that. So our directive, I guess, for lack of a better term, of having masks optional, is that going to apply to convocation as well?
Unless you direct otherwise, at this point, it was mask encouraged or strongly encouraged, if that's the verbiage you'd like for us to use.
Okay.
So at this point, it was that it is optional, but the live stream is also another option should they not want to even come into the space.
Okay. And so masks are going to be optional for all participants at convocation?
Yes, which would be all staff in the district. And at the very end, we'll still do the roll call. So there'll be some, you know, yay, we're excited, you know, that kind of thing. So you will hear talking, or it's an arena. So it's an academic pep rally is what it's meant to be. So,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That helps.
What other aspects of this conversation are we missing that we haven't sort of explored yet? It might help us get some direction. Ms. Bowie, anything?
Well, yeah, I think of the people who contract COVID and don't know it. You know, they're just like, I think I have allergies, and maybe they had COVID and then just didn't know it. I don't know what you all think about that, but you know, I know people have home tests, or maybe they test, or maybe they don't, or maybe they test and like, oh, I have it, and then just go on about their business, which isn't cool, but we know what's happening.
I was wondering about a little bit of data here. Ms. Schmidt said that she's received calls or emails or some type of contact from constituents. I was wondering the number of constituents she's actually heard from.
I've received 4 to 5 emails just because people saw that it was, we had health and safety on the agenda for this evening. So they're just concerned. They don't want to go back to having it be mandated. It's not that they don't want a safe school. They just want to be able to choose what safe looks like for their family.
Thank you. That's helpful.
So it doesn't seem like there's a majority who would support mandating masks, but would there be a majority who would change the way that we message masks?
I think a lot of our students are going to continue to wear masks anyway, because I think of when we went mask optional, so many kids continued to wear masks. Like I remember walking the halls of Troy and so many kids were wearing masks when transmission was very, very low. So I think our messaging should stay as it is, like encouraged but optional. And I think we're going to still see a lot of kids in masks, my opinion.
Yeah, Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, I don't know if what we say matters as much. I do think maybe messaging as far as education about community transmission levels and that kind of stuff. So for a while at the bottom of our communicator each week we had the community transmission levels. And then when stuff calmed down, it got better. And as evidenced tonight, I don't think a lot of our parents know what our community level is. I live it. I get an email 3 times a week what our community levels are. So I think I have a biased lens. But I think, what you put on there as far as mass encouraged, strongly encouraged. But I think if people see, okay, Shawnee County, it's high transmission, I think that kind of educational piece, I think, would be more impactful for a lot of the families and help them make that decision.
Yeah, previously we had a COVID communicator. So rather than doing that on the bottom of the communication, the C news, we'll just add that at the very bottom and just put those levels, at least when we're in the high, we'll start putting the levels when it's in the high so we can see that.
Mr. President.
Yes, Ms. Bowie.
I think that information is very powerful for parents to make that decision if their student should wear a mask. We have so many people who stream their televisions now and their phones or whatever, that many times I think we have people don't watch their local news or know a lot of what the spread is right now. So I think just educating our parents so that they can make informed decisions would be the direction that we really need to go. So I really like Dr. Anderson's suggestion.
Mr. President, we'll be doing a Texas two-step for years.
Okay. So one item is just to resume communicating to, at every opportunity, where we are in terms of transmissions, make sure that everybody knows where we are so that people can take precautions that they feel is necessary for their families. Is there anything else? No. Yeah.
Just what we talked about earlier, as far as exploring again, as far as the vaccine and ways to get it in parts of our community that it may be harder to get, trying to make that easier for them, and seeing if either KDHE or Shawnee County Health Department would be willing to partner with it.
Okay. Dr. Anderson, anything else that you need from us?
No, sir. Thank you for those suggestions. We'll follow up on both of those. And Ms. Portella, we can add to the C News, even though we sent it out today. It's a live document, correct? She already made a note. So it will be on the bottom of the C News starting tomorrow for those that have already received it. The one that just went out, she'll adjust it. Thank you all. I'm sorry, Mr. President, I did put in front of you I'm not sure if I got them all right. And Ms. Foley, my apologies. I didn't email it to you. And there were a couple of months that are empty, but your collection of comments related to the work study sessions that you're in now, I believe you all collected feedback from different board members on what you would like those topics to be. So tonight, I believe Dr. Schumacher might have suggested COVID, so that's why you talked about that tonight. And there were others, and again, I may have left something off. Because the number of schools, the academic achievement one, Ross is kind of a special building. It's quite large, and it has quite a different format, so it had its own night attached to your COVID discussion. It may take 2 meetings to get through the other schools. We've shown you test scores and we put them in order of, at your retreat, we put them in order of the highest to the lowest. But this is really administrators being on the screen or in the room, either by strand or in some creative way over 2 meetings to talk about their plan as a strand. So that academic achievement was for August and September as we're getting the year started. Mental health was brought up, and October is a month in which we have a variety of mental health related kinds of things occurring. And so that'll be during that month. I did learn, Ms. Schmidt, that we do have training from NAMI that we already participate in their training. But the other organization we aren't currently partnering with, so I just emailed both of them to say, what else can we do? And how can we expand beyond what we do? But mental health would be the time in which you might want that work session in October while it's still early as well. Just so you know, often suicides happen. When they do happen, over the holiday breaks and in the winter, and depression also sinks in during that time. So that's another reason for the October. The November one, October is when the graduation rates come out. And so there was, I believe, a suggestion about equity and just college and career readiness. And I may have that wrong, Mr. Munoz, as you all go through this list. But I did add the legislative agenda. I know that you all did mention that a couple of times. And in November, we'll be asking you to look at the legislative platform that I and the other guys in the county, the other superintendent, we put it together and then we bring it to our boards to say, approve this. And then we take it to the legislator after that in December. So November, that's going to come up anyway. But to your point of wanting to talk about legislation, it's back in March, because remember this time you all wanted to hear from the lobbyists to see what was going on right around that time as they were talking, and so you could advocate. And then I skipped December because of the holiday break. Often you're trying to shove in a whole lot of stuff in that short period of time. And a lot of members, if they're going to take vacations, may not be here later in the month. For January, I couldn't quite remember I had a note. I know I couldn't fully read my own writing. But
I don't know if we got that far, but
okay, I was gonna say, because we had several items listed, so I just put cultural issues, diversity, languages, just ... as your topics. And then the last one, finance, was one of the ones you mentioned, and so I just added it where it might naturally flow with audits and those things in April. That leaves May and February. At the very top, it mentions Ross being maybe a recommended for first semester. If you would like to pick a time frame for that, October might be a good time when you're talking about mental health, just given the population and the change that they're making at their building. And it's not too cold for people to walk and all of that. So I would propose that might be a date to think about. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. President, on the proposal for Ross first semester, and then for you all to discuss this list to see if we left anything off.
So do you need something from us on this?
Well, if you're comfortable with the next work sessions for August and September being academic achievement and equity between schools, I believe Mrs. Boley and perhaps many of you brought that up. Are we comfortable with us having those as the work sessions for August and September? Thank you. Are we comfortable with Ross in October being the board meeting? Thank you. That's all we need at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. And every time when myself and Dr. Anderson and Ms. Bowley get together, I'll always try and make sure I send you just a quick message. And if you have anything on your mind, we'll try and add that on. So thanks so much. Next item on our agenda is, let's see here, action items, approval of proposed policy changes.
Discussion items are next.
Okay, let's jump ahead then. Discussion items. First off, notice of intent to exceed revenue neutral rate 2022 to 2023. I believe we have Mr. Minke.
Good evening. Ms. Mansfield's passing out a handout and really intended to help answer any questions that you may have. Not that I want to walk you through that. I did that today. It was about 3 hours. Deputy Superintendent Donna, it was about 3 hours. You probably don't want that version of this. But as I had been communicating, what we are asking you to do tonight, what we're not asking, we are not asking you to pass a resolution to exceed the revenue neutral rate. We simply just need to notify the county clerk's office, and there's a lot of dates in this thing, but simply it sets the maximum amount. When we do bring that budget to you, and hopefully on September 1st, and there's a whole lot of variables in this, right? There's enrollment and assessed valuation and neighborhood revitalization, taxes collected, not distributed, So there's a lot of things that go in this. I will share, right, and this is the second year, Kansas Department of Ed budget workshop says, hey, at least send the county clerk your notice of intent, because these values are estimates. And if those estimates aren't achieved, there is the possibility that we can have a legal max budget authority in that general fund and the LOB that we cannot finance because we don't collect taxes. I think demonstratively, we have been very cognizant of internal and external needs when we build this budget, and there's a couple of slides in the packet that you have that would demonstrate that. The mill levy history, I think, is one that we really have tried to manage our mill levy, and we've done that a couple of ways. Quite honestly, the general fund and the LOB are throttled. We don't need revenue neutral legislation to throttle those two things because they're throttled by enrollment. And our enrollment has been declining, as that front page clearly demonstrates. Our other levies, we have our bond and interest levy. We've worked really hard at refinancing that 2014 series, that package of bonds, driven down that mill levy from 6.89 to 4 mils. That's going to remain about 4 mils flattened out until I believe 2028, and we'll be able to drop that to 3. That is actuarial from our bond advisor, bond counsel. The refinancing of the 2014 bonds saved the district taxpayers about $56 million over the life of those bonds, cut 5 years off the payback. So for us building this budget, and we're going to have a lot more conversations about this budget this year because there has been some other law changes in terms of how the board views and reviews and passes a budget. So you're going to see us quite a bit here over the next few weeks, but simply notifying the county clerk that there is the possibility when we bring this to adoption that we may exceed that. Not going to be by much, but it is my job to protect, I believe, my job to protect as much budget authority in that general fund and LOB, because that is how we fund teachers and staff.
Could you start with some basic, Mr. Mickey, of the revenue neutral rate and what it means?
Right.
And then we'll go from there.
So really, the revenue neutral rate is calculated by county clerks, and it is an estimate simply based on estimated valuations. It's an estimated mill levy that collects the exact same amount of taxes as the prior year or less. That is revenue neutral. If assessed valuations go up, right, what happens to revenue neutral rate? It's going to have to go down because one mill is going to collect more dollars. But let me address something on assessed valuations. Go about the middle of your packet to the assessed valuation history. Take a look at your assessed valuations. Let's go another couple of slides. By year, there's starts about 2005-06. Keep scrolling. Right there. What goes up can come down. So that's important to understand. Prior to 21-22, if you look at a 10-year history from 05 to 2020, we had less than a 1% growth in our evaluations in the district. Topeka Public Schools is unique in that we have a lot of government property, including our own here in the state capital, so that are not on the tax rolls, as well as we have a pretty aggressive, or pretty generous, aggressive. I don't know which word you'd like to use. The other is our neighborhood revitalization and IRB. We about $1.8 million, $1.7 million, $1.8 every year collected, and it's on our audits. Taxes collected, not distributed on our behalf. They go to support those neighborhood revitalization programs and the TIF areas, like 29th and Fair Lawn. It's a beautiful area, but those are collected on our behalf, part of our mill levy, just not distributed to us. We don't have those extra dollars for our budget. That's revenue neutral. Is that pretty clear? And it is new the last 2 years. Again, you could levy mills. There's about 19 funds in a Kansas school district that you could levy funds on. We levy 5. General fund, everybody levies 20. You have an option on the 20 mills that have to levy that. Supplemental general, or the LOB, which is throttled at a percentage of your general fund. Your capital outlay fund. We have the special liability, what I call a legal defense fund, and then our bond and interest. Those are the only 5 that we levy mills in. So really just you're understanding that our notification of the county clerk's office that we as we build this budget out, it kind of looks like from where we're standing here, that's a strong possibility. And when we bring the budget to adoption, we would propose both hearings, the revenue neutral rate and the budget adoption, same night. Simply as that. The other packet that I had shared with you on the revenue neutral, the board memo, that adds some clarity. That house in zip code 66611, I'll give you a guess whose house that is. So I know that information's accurate. You guys cost me $2 last year, by the way, and I just throwing that out there. You cost me $2 extra. And not to take this lightly, we do think it's important that we are stewards of those taxpayer dollars, but we also are responsible for funding our budget, and quite frankly, we're 70. You hear me say this over and over. We're about 70-75% people. We're people business, but we're like everybody else. We've had some challenges this year. Why I think protecting budget authority, being careful, right? Inflation hits 9.1. Wall Street Journal. It's not the National Enquirer, so that is probably a pretty good number. Fuel at the top of the list, 60%. Guess who uses a lot of fuel? Yes, we use a bunch. Fuel cost us about $356,000 more this year than it did the prior year. I don't think that's going backwards over the next 12 months. Big yellow buses are very visible. They are not fuel efficient. They get about 6-7 miles a gallon here in town. First when the weather gets cold. So that's really what we're want. Just make sure you guys are checking off on this in this process. It's simply what we're doing tonight. We will roll up very quickly to that first meeting in September, where it is likely that we'll have that revenue neutral hearing and the adoption of our regular budget. And that will be just like the process we did last year, but it will, when we publish our Code 99, 10 days prior to that meeting, we'll publish the revenue neutral right along with it. And that's revenue neutral. Enrollment, the things that I think are important, the variables, enrollment. What does enrollment do to revenue? Mill levy, assessed valuations. Those are all components of the things that we have to look at when we develop the final number. And then building assessments this year due, and what we do with that big number in terms of distributing that to individual school buildings. Intent. Yes, ma'am.
So, and I just want to repeat what you just said to make sure that I understand it, and also for my colleagues, for those who aren't in the finance committee meetings. So every year we set the mill levy. And that mill levy, whatever we set, it determines how much taxes we bring in to be able to fund the school. But the legislature has passed a law, that revenue neutral rate, which said that if your taxes that you bring in are more than the year before, you have to announce to everyone through revenue neutral rate this intent that we're going to set our mill levy at a rate and we'll bring potentially more taxes in than we did last year. Is that?
That's correct.
And how much do you think it would be more?
You know, under a quarter of a mil, I would suspect actual taxes collected would be under $300,000. But again, we're really unique, and up until the point we get that final Code 99, because of taxes collected and not distributed to us, we're really on that line where we'll exceed the calculated value from the county clerk. We may not exceed the amount of dollars in terms of dollars collected. But the strange thing about this is if you're wrong, and the county clerk collects $20 more on our behalf than the year before we did do this, now the law's been changed in spring, right? They have to notify all the taxpayers again and refund. I mean, there's a component now that has to be refunded, which gets interesting. I mean, to refund, you know, to $200 to 16,000 homeowners, I don't know. So that is exactly, you're exactly right. The other thing in this law, what we need to understand is when you look at that mill levy, the 20 mills on that general fund, if you look at the general fund and the LOB, one's a flat line. The other interesting thing this year, I think this is probably a good idea because I just don't know what impact it's going to have. I don't think it's going to be much, but it would be total mills. Yeah. Scroll down. Yeah, right there, Scott. So that 20 mill levy line, if you look at 2023 backwards to 2009. So if you look at your property tax statements, the first $20,000 of value of your real property, your home, is exempt from the tax, from the school district tax. The RNR, the legislation passed this past spring, increases that to $40,000. So now they're $40,000 worth of tax of value is exempt. And you know what, with the increases in valuations being as strong as they've been the past 2 years, which are historic and interesting. So that's probably a good thing for taxpayers. But that 20 mills, right, with $40,000 now being exempt, is going to collect fewer dollars for schools. Has that potential. Let's just say that. Any other questions? I mean, in terms for clarity, I know I put at the beginning of this and shared with the teachers as legislative changes occur, and I shared with budget finance. This year's the budget workshop. We spent 3 hours talking about legislative changes and not the budget. 3 hours. So anything increasingly difficult to explain becomes exceedingly difficult to understand. I know that. I get it. But I think we can demonstrate with our mill levy and with our budget authorities that we have as a board, as a district, I think we have tried to be very responsive.
What other questions are there for Mr. Minky? This is, I've been here for two years on the finance council. And I'm still, I'm getting it. It's making sense. But for those of you who haven't been on it yet, I want to make sure, and it's our responsibility as board members to sort of have a good grasp on what's before us. So any questions? And I can't see Mr. Campbell.
I'm curious, why are virtual students not included in the enrollment FTE and follow-up? What does CAMS stand for?
Yeah, so that CAMS is the math and science program at Fort Hays State University.
Oh,
that,
Fort Hays,
that,
right.
So juniors and seniors can participate in it. Every year we have 1 or 2 kids that do that. So virtual students, it's a whole nother part of the finance law, and their state aid is different, quite honestly. And this year that changed a little bit too, but we get a little over $5,000 per full-time FTE, and then there's a part-time FTE rate, and then adult 19 years or older. And again, that has a different rate. Those can only collect credits, maximum of 6. I believe it's $709 per credit. So it is different. The state aid per student is different. This year, our state aid per student will be $4,846. And that is the other thing that this sheet, and I would really, any of the data that we provide you, my direct line 295-3052, and would encourage you to use that as much as you like over the next 30 days. 295-3056 between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m.
And I'll just say that this is just one piece of the puzzle. One is the mill levy, which determines how many funds that come in to be able to support and run our schools. The second part of that is the budget and how we'll spend those, which will come up in September. Is that right?
September 1st.
They both have to be in sync. They have to be,
that's correct.
And so, any questions for those online? Dr. Bowenbrake, Ms. Bowley? Can't necessarily see it.
Mr. President, I did have something. I understand we'll be talking about the budget often in the next few meetings. And I understood on the news the other night that the city council is talking about dropping a mill levy. That's kind of in their plans. So I was just wondering if you could come back to us to help me understand what the city dropping a mill levy might mean for us as a district. It doesn't have to be answered tonight, but when I heard that, I had some big concerns about losing some more money for our district. And it sounds to me like we really do need to take some action on this tonight so that you can get your letter in on time. Am I correct for that?
Yeah. We just this again is an intent. I can't answer that. I mean, any mill levy changes the city makes, right? It's a separate taxing entity, wouldn't have any direct impact on our budget. Certainly impacts homeowners. So if they lower their mill for the city by 1, it's going to impact their budget. None of the other taxing entities within the area. But even with this revenue neutral, understand we're going to propose a mill levy decrease, and it'll be 2 mills. Again, not magic. It's enrollment, right? Because we can only set a levy to fund a legal max in the general fund and the LOB, and that's driven by enrollment. Yeah, did that help, Ms. Bowley?
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to action items. Yeah, okay. First action item is approval of proposed policy changes, which were reviewed by Ms. Schmidt last time. Are there any questions or anything that we had? I did have a time to look at it. Questions? Questions up on Zoom, Ms. Bowley, Dr. Schumacher, Dr. Bowenbrake. Okay. Well, then I'm looking for a.
Gary's done a remarkable job, and he has so many variables to work with, and the legislature is going to make more changes, so we'll hurry up and wait.
All right. Yes, definitely the whole finance team has done a good job to make sure that we are spending funds in a way that we are good caretakers of stewards of these funds, and that it goes where it should, which is teachers teaching kids. Okay, if there's no other questions about these items, we'll go ahead and move on to action item 20.1. Is there a motion on approval of proposed policy changes?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the policy changes as recommended by the policy committee and district council.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second? Okay. Dr. Schumacher with a second. Any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. Ms. Lister.
Vote is open. Ms. Foley, if you'd like to.
Aye. Bowenbrake.
Thank you, Dr. Bowenbrake. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Next item on our action item is a notice of intent to exceed revenue neutral rate for 2022-2023. Is there a motion?
Mr. President, I move to approve the notice of intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate for 2022-2023.
All right, there is a motion. Is there a second? All right, Mr. Tatum with a second. Any discussion or questions before we move to a vote? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move. Ms. Lister.
Vote is open.
Bowenbrake, aye.
All votes are in and the motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you, everyone. Next item on our agenda is board member comments, and we'll start with Dr. Bowenbrake, who's online here.
In the interest of brevity, I have no further comments to make. You're welcome.
Thank you for your brevity. Dr. Schumacher.
I don't know what to say. So we had personnel, I'll be quick. We had personnel committee today, a few things. There's another job fair coming up on July 28th, a week from today. We had quite a bit of success with our initial job fair earlier this month. Got a picture of my aunt with Dr. Anderson after that, which was very exciting. I just want to give a shout out to all the hard work with Ms. Ramberg, Dr. New, Mr. Robbins. They continue to amaze me all the time. And then also I think all of us a reminder for our families, for the family benefits application, meal benefits application, getting those done, because that's important for the families and some of the services we can provide, but also to continue to help fund us. Outside of personnel committee, just a few things that I'm excited about. I know, among others, the Burger Stand, Bonkers, Mount Zion, Fellowship Bible Church, they're all trying to get school supplies into our kids' hands. And so I think that's an exciting thing. And I saw, we have a lot of big partnership with United Way. And I saw Robinson Middle School, they had their, United Way had their campaign awards, and Robinson Middle School won one of the awards, which I was very impressed as a Robinson alum. And then also coming up on the 25th, the Discovery Center is hosting the kind of a kindergarten, I can't remember the name, it's on our schedule, the kindergarten fair at the Discovery Center. So there'll be community partners there. I think from 4 to 6. So another exciting thing happening as we gear up to go back to school.
Good. Thank you so much. Mr. Tatum.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just got a couple of items. Want to plug to kind of piggyback on Dr. Schumacher's shout outs. My own employer, the Kansas Department of Labor, we are also doing a supply drive for our students. It had nothing to do with it. It wasn't my idea. But one of the departments of the agency came up with the idea to do a school supply drive for USD 501 students. So we as a district will get the proceeds of that very soon. It's still underway, but definitely wanted to make that an item to put on the radar. The other thing I wanted to do, while I was at work the other day, I was walking through the lobby and the big screen television was on. And I don't know who, but somebody changed it to, I think it's channel 4, the information channel that the school, the district rather, operates. And I was pleasantly surprised to see myself on there, but also quite a bit of Mr. Munoz. And I wanted to give a shout out to the media team, Dr. Gray, Mr. Gowan, probably folks that are contributing, making those things look really good, really professional. And obviously people are watching it or else it wouldn't have been on. So definitely wanted to, they do a lot of work. And I don't know that we always recognize these folks for what they do, but definitely wanted to give you guys a shout out as well. That's all I have.
Thanks so much. Ms. Schmidt.
I think as we are in July, August is right around the corner, right? We were at the store the other night, and I was one of those kids that really loved school starting, you know. And as an adult, my husband can vouch, I still love to go and shop for school supplies. Some of them I donate to those causes, and then some I may have a box that I store them in. But I say this because I noticed on social media, you know, the principals getting back into the school leaderships, you know, opening up the schools, teachers getting ready with their rooms. And so I'm just really excited to start the school year. You know, there's just a lot of anticipation, historically always for me, as a new school year starts. And so I am looking forward to what we can accomplish this year.
Thanks so much. Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Yeah, I feel that too. Just the buzz of the excitement of the upcoming school year. And with that, I want to publicly thank Doris Darrington. She was from the Topeka High School class of 1951. And the Topeka High School Historical Society, she gave a very generous donation for Topeka High to restore the surfaces on their main entry foyer and in the hallways. So thank you, Doris Darrington. So we're going to see more improvements in the halls of Troy. So very good stuff. And also, okay, high school. So one of the questions I asked Mr. Mankey was, what is CAMS? And I'm like, oh yeah, I have heard of that. The Kansas Academy of Math and Science, I think is what it stands for. And this is something which is offered in Hayes, through Fort Hays State University. And it got me, the other day I was thinking about, there is so much high school and Mr. Schumacher, Mr. Munoz, Dr. Schumacher, you will see, you're about to find out, it is a whole other world. There is so much to know, and Topeka Public Schools is really doing an amazing job with everything that we offer, that it's it's a little overwhelming, but in a good way, to have like so many choices. And I just wanted to say that like I, as a, as an involved parent and as a school board member, I have some trouble still like keeping up with what's what. So like I recently learned about CAMs, and so I'm hoping that I don't know how we can do it, but you all are smart people. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I'm hoping we could come up with some kind of, I don't know, infographic, a video, just to inform parents of all the choices in high school, like how many credits their kids need, when you can qualify for TCALC, and I know it's on the websites, but for them to even know where to go look, how you have to be a junior for TCALC. So, we've got Washburn Tech, we've got Washburn, we've got TCALC. We even have things going on with like Ivy League universities, and then the camps. We just have a lot, and it's great. But where can parents learn about all of these options in like one place? Like click here for this, click here for this. So anyway, that is my praise that we offer so many amazing things, and just a suggestion for how it can be more easily navigated for parents. So yeah, that's it. Thanks.
And Ms. Bowie.
I would like to ask somebody to collect the paperwork that was handed out tonight to save for me for when I return. If somebody would do that, I would appreciate that. I wanted to do the report on the Sheldon Head Start grant that you all approved tonight. Thank you for doing that. I hope you had a chance to read it. It is due August 1st, so your actions tonight allows that to be turned in and start that funding stream for our youngest and soon to be brightest students in our district. So thank you for doing that. The team worked really hard on that, and it's very well written. And so I hope you had a few minutes to take a look at that. I wanted to say welcome back to our principals. I'm just so excited to see their excitement in returning to their schools and waiting for their work families to return, and then of course their students. So exciting time. It was just perfect to have the position for Dr. Mejia to come on board in her new position as we start welcoming new students from across the world, evidently. And her position is going to be so important to help integrate these people into our schools and give them the best transition possible and to feel welcome. And I'm just so grateful that we had the insight to have this position in place, and to thank Dr. Anderson for that. I also wanted to thank Dr. Anderson for creating so many partnerships as we talk about all the people that are helping us with school supplies. It is just numerous, and it's because of that outreach and those listening tours. And it just makes our district stronger to have somebody who is out there helping us make those connections and encouraging their principals to do the same, such as Mr. Gardner. And also I want to thank my members for approving the new upgrades on our cameras in our school buildings. They are going to be much higher grade, and as we all worry about protection of our buildings, we just took one more step and added one more layer to make our buildings safe for our students. So I just wanted our community to know that that is top and foremost for us, and we're working towards making them a great place to be. Thanks all of you for the hard work that you do.
All right, thanks so much. I don't have much to share just because there is no school, and so I haven't been to any events. The only thing I would share is that we had our finance committee meeting and we talked about the revenue neutral rate, which is why it's still a little bit fresh in my mind. I think the trends we're seeing are still continuing. We think student enrollment may be declining, maybe not so much. Fingers crossed as as years pass. But again, it's part of something larger that's happening, right? It's not just in 501, it's all many districts across the state overall. And so, so keeping an eye on that is important to be able to know how to work our budget in a way that ensures that we have teachers what they need to be and the support that they need in classrooms for the students who we're here to learn. Other than that, one other thing, as parents begin to register their kids, I do want to just emphasize that there's been some changes in the way that funding for student lunches is been funded. And before, in the last couple of years, just because of COVID, all students were able to receive free lunches, but that's changed now. And the federal government isn't necessarily having everybody have free lunches. So it's really important that when you register, that you fill out the form that asks for reduced lunches. A lot of our parents do qualify. So it's a simple, it's an issue of just making sure that we have the efforts and that they have the support to be able to fill that out, to make sure that all of our students who qualify receive that funding to be able to receive the free reduced lunches. So that's the only thing I would say as far as we begin to sort of enter registration periods for schools and wherever your student might be. Other than that, I think July is almost over. School is almost about to start. We're right on the precipice of a new year. That summer went by really fast. I know our administration is incredibly busy right now, getting ready, doing what's necessary to have our schools ready for the day that schools open on August 10th. So I thank you all for all of your efforts. And with that, unless there's anything else, we are adjourned. Thanks so much, everyone.